Success early in January, St. Louis, all the way through the present. Going forward, we have USA Pro Cycling Challenge, and then the two races up in Canada, Quebec, Montreal. That is as far as we have now. I'm long listed on the Team Time Trial at Worlds, and I'd like to race for Team USA at the World Championships.
Yeah, the team time trial is the trade team.
Correct.
So, so when will they make those selections?
Um, the incorrect but correct answer is your guess is as good as mine. We had
Right.
there was a team time trial at Tour of Utah. I mean, there aren't a lot of team time trials, especially in America, but European as well. That's my car. Just back it up. Looking good. Yep.
Perfect.
I painted it myself. The general theme is just the success that I've been part of. 20 plus wins throughout the year. Beginning, like I said, St. Louis. If I really pinpoint it, one big highlight was California. Winning 5 stages. That was just sort of unprecedented. And obviously, it takes a rider as unique and talented as Peter. But obviously, truth be told, he really can't do it all by himself. And so, to do that on home soil, right there with good friend, teammate Timmy Duggan. The fans were there, the crowd, the enthusiasm. It's something special to be part of that. Going into 2011, Timmy and I were, I'd say, good acquaintances, but I wouldn't really have called him a good friend. I passed through Colorado quite a bit, which is his home state, and I lived in Girona for 2 years, and he'd been there for, I think, 4 at that point. We knew each other. You'd hang out and go for training rides here to get there. But then to become teammates on this team, which is, characteristically Italian, undeniably. You can see the direction that is going, and a lot of the more international riders, the more Anglo-Saxons they've hired of late, but there's an Italian skew. That's why racing back on home soil is that much more special. And then to do what we did at the national championships, both last year, where it was like you were saying, it's the same setup. There's a lot of support that we're piecing together ourselves, admittedly, and it's no fault of anybody's. It's not like a lot of people are pointing fingers and saying, "Well, why didn't this company or that company help you out?" But it's just that's the way domestic racing works. At a national championship, all the other teams are in virtually the same boat. The ones that aren't American based. So, it's fun to. It was a throwback. It was a throwback to amateur racing when you're pumping up your own tires or figuring out, like, calling up somebody, a buddy of a buddy, to get a massage and doing your water bottles the night before. And there was just a lot of homegrown support in Greenville that is a product of a lot of hard work. Just lining all your ducks up in a row, and then to have it all come together. It's obviously very long odds, 2 guys against a field of 100. Collectively, all those things over the past 5 minutes made it a really special win. And one thing it reminds me of is my first year domestic, like racing professionally, domestically. I was with Priority Health, and that was 98% American. But I was on the team with my brother, and that was it was great having someone you could always trust, a confidant, a really good friend, as well as a training partner and a buddy, and somebody you can trust in the races, out of the races, and just know virtually how fast it's out. And so the same thing has happened with Timmy, just being an incredible friend in an experience that just it's so unique. Like, there aren't, we're the first 2 Americans ever ride for this team. So to have that opportunity and somebody to hang out with and be able to share the experience with, it's just very special. From the more knowledgeable public, yes. I guess the more difficult aspect of that to try to quantify those or qualify those wins are to, like, I guess, family or friends who don't have the cycling background. I mean, like literally high school friends that I've grown up with. And so, when I tell them I've been part of 20 wins, they say, that's awesome, like, congratulations. And it delves a little bit further. Then they begin to understand.
What does that mean?
Right, exactly. So, that takes a lifetime of understanding cycling. And so you can sort of pick and choose your words to summarize cycling in a 5-minute conversation with your best friends from high school. But that's also fun, too. It's fun to educate a broader community. But that's, you often have to pick American sports and try to make a comparison.
Right. You're really active.
Yes, I definitely think so. Cycling is it's a growing sport in America, and to a degree, it still is a foreign sport. And so to create that transparency that cycling is moving in that direction, with more transparency across the board, that's something that I'm sort of hoping to provide. And what I write for bicycling, what I write on my being open on Facebook and Twitter, and just. Cycling takes place in public roads. It's not a closed arena. It's not a closed hockey rink at 5 a.m. It's something that's very open to the public, and that's something I try to, jump on board with. I took a class in college called the Creative Process, and I never understood what the class was called at the time. I think college is wasted on the youth, so it sort of was wasted on me. But now, in retrospect, I'm gaining all that education and understanding what the creative process means. And so there's so many times on a bike. There's a lot of mindless thought. There's a lot of active thought. There's a lot of creative thought over the course of a 5-6 hour race, 5-6 hour day, training day. So I guess that's just the way my mind has sort of been wired more so lately. In college I was an economics major, but at a small liberal arts school where we did a lot of writing, and never in my college career would I have guessed that my writing would sort of take off in the direction it has. But certainly it's a product of all the writing that I was sort of forced to do even as an econ major. So yeah. In high school, I read the morning announcements to school, and I always thought that was funny because I'm like, wow, how often do you get the chance to talk to 1,500 people? I'm like, literally, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to school. Today is August 14th. Today's hot lunch is going to be this, this, and this. And don't forget, after school, there's varsity tennis, blah, blah, blah. But, same sort of thing. I thought that was a very entertaining, unique thing. It's like, how often do you get a chance to do that? Even if it is awesome, whatever. And so, yeah. And now to have an unscripted 140 characters to go preach to my choir, I think it's a blast. It's fun. For sure there's a split. It's a forever more enlightened audience. That's the direction's moving in towards social media, and the people who don't understand it are, quite frankly, the ones who don't use it.
Yeah.
I perfectly understand it. I was on the other side of that fence once, and I said, Twitter, why would I do that when I can put a Facebook status out there? But, it's once you adapt, and you're like, yeah, this is here to stay. It's more than just a passing phase. Yeah. No. I love Girona. I had a great time there, and, there's a decent chance that I would end up there in, the coming years. But yeah, Lucca was a choice for the cultural experience, the immersion, and certainly the language too. Up to that point, I spoke quite a bit of Spanish, and thankfully the crossover between Spanish and Italian is close. But there's more to the language than Rosetta Stone, and said, "Yep, I'll dive right in and move to Lucca." Which, basically, Lucca is a Girona East. There's a lot of Anglo-Saxons there, which is certainly nice when you want to debrief after a race and hang out with your buddies. But you're looking for good terrain, good weather, an airport nearby, good people.
What's the riding like?
Virtually everything you'd ever need. Perfectly flat when you want that, and 25-kilometer climbs if you want that. I'd call it maybe a little bit punchier. as I think Italy's known in general as a pretty punchy climbing place. But yeah, virtually anything you ever need. I think it will be a very tight race, tight start to finish, based on well, it looks on paper, and paper only goes so far. A slightly easier start. Some hills that we know and some hills that we don't know in the middle. Independence Pass and Cottonwood. But more than anything, I think the boulder stage is going to be a lot of motivation from a lot of people. And up to that point, I see the race still being very tight. And I see a diesel truck behind me. And I see pizza oven. I see, certainly having a time trial in the final stage. It'll make, I think, racing for 7 straight days. That'll be interesting from a fan standpoint too. In general, Colorado is a very educated crowd from a cycling standpoint, and so hopefully they understand what a time trial is, opposed to a bunch of dudes in spandex just going around in laps, which maybe wouldn't have understood it either.
Right.
Yeah, start to finish, I think, with a lot of emphasis toward the end, great race. Certainly, changing a flat, moving a chain, those things are inexcusable. And I'm preaching to a bicycling audience. A lot of folks who maybe don't know how to do that. Backing up a trailer is actually a skill that most people should have. Nutritionally, right, you should understand caloric intake, caloric expenditure, just the general world of what, in the very macro level, protein, fat, carb, understand a simple sugar. Maybe that just comes with experience and sort of the years of knowledge and reading the nutrition facts here and there. But, myself and probably 80% of my colleagues could do the exact same thing. Look at an amount of food, know exactly what the food is, and ballpark within 5-10% what the caloric value is. Which sounds kind of dorky, but it's just it's second nature to myself or Timmy or whoever. What else? Style. Style is kind of important. You don't want to look like a goofball. Speaking of which, I took a picture of Timmy this morning wearing white socks and sandals, and somebody called me out on that.
That's pretty.
But that's also one of the. It's egregious, but that's sort of the nice thing about being a pro is you get to define style, even if it's a complete effrontery to what the standard going understood style is. Sometimes you get to throw caution to the wind and say, "This looks good."
Kind of let you fly by.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, a general understanding of style is important. You don't want to look like a Joey. Maybe, okay, I'm freestyling here. You should have enough information, general training know-how to be able to train others, to be a mentor or a coach, but always be hungry enough to have somebody looking out for you and coach you.
Do not ever feel like, oh, I already know it.
Right, sure, exactly.
Unless you
Unless you do, which is kind of scary. See, I've seen a lot of people come to the sport 2-3 years in and immediately they're coaching 12 people. I'm like, maybe not even 2-3 years in, just immediately. They're like, wait, what gives you the know-how to know what cumulative stress score is all about? I like to tell folks who are not wearing their helmet that they should wear a helmet. I'm a big advocate of the brain injury world. Yes, that's a difficult one. General quick style points, I like to help folks out with those. Short socks, don't wear short socks. If it's an egregiously too short saddle, I'll tell them it'd behoove you to raise your saddle. But I try to do it as passively as possible, and don't want to be scaring people away from the sport in the first place.
Right.
What else? General question people ask, do I have a coach or do I coach myself? Yes, I have a coach. I try to be active in the collegiate cycling scene as much as I can, because I'm I'm a huge fan of collegiate cycling. I mean, that's sort of my upbringing in the sport. So yeah, my first point to any kid who's in high school and sort of questioning whether they should go or not, I'm a huge advocate of collegiate cycling. So I try to steer them in direction, and you know, you're going to understand a lot. You're going to learn a lot in college, whether it's about the War of 1812 or like how to discipline that with training with the next exam. Be confident.
Yes.
Like, yes, be confident. Go do that group ride, and at least pretend you know what you're doing. No, maybe that's a bad piece of advice. Well, okay, for sure the confidence is there. The first step is being there. Go to the group ride. Don't hem and haw on that. I don't know. Maybe keep a 6-inch buffer around you. 6 to 12 inches on all sides. Be very aware. And I don't want to make these like 3 things suddenly become 10. If I say be aware and keep a 6-inch buffer, but yeah, head on a swivel. That's as good as being aware. And here's one of my favorite pieces of advice: wear gloves. Doesn't take much to put on and take off gloves, and they're as stylish as anything. But having torn up palms really sucks.